Why Chakotay and B'Elanna's rank insignia are different compared to other Star Trek Voyager crew members. Star Trek Voyager plays by the same Starfleet rank insignia rules as the rest of the franchise, but Commander Chakotay, Robert Beltran, and LT B'Elanna, Torres, Rox, and Dawson have their commissions displayed differently from almost every other member of their ship's crew. This may seem like some kind of continuity error, but there's a very good explanation for why neither Chakotay nor B'Elanna wears traditional rank pips on their necks. They aren't the only members of the Star Trek Voyager cast to deviate from the norm in this way, but they are the show's most prominent figures to do so. Starfleet ranks in Star Trek have been the same since the franchise began in 1966. Although the cast of Star Trek, the original series, displayed their rank insignia on their sleeves with a series of stripes, later Star Trek TV shows went on to change this. For instance, the 90s Star Trek shows all had their Starfleet characters sport pips on their collars to denote their respective ranks. That being said, pips weren't the only things worn in this position, as demonstrated by Chakotay and B'Elanna in Star Trek Voyager. Chakotay and B'Elanna Torres received provisional ranks from Captain Janeway. Chakotay and B'Elanna were never supposed to be part of the ship's crew. Instead, Captain Catherine Janeway Kate Mulgrew was forced to integrate the members of Chakotay's Maquis crew into her own due to the deaths at key positions in Star Trek Voyager's pilot episode. Voyager's captain had other options in terms of replacement personnel, but she chose Chakotay as her second-in-command and B'Elanna to run engineering as a display of trust. Of course, they were both also very qualified. However, neither held a Starfleet commission, so Janeway bestowed field ranks upon both characters. Captain Janeway never wavered in her immediate decision that Voyager would continue to operate as a Starfleet vessel for the duration of its journey home from the Delta Quadrant to Earth. So those in senior positions needed to have appropriate ranks. Starfleet captains are permitted to carry out provisional promotions that are intended to be honored for the duration of a mission. So Janeway took full advantage of this rule. It just so happened that the field ranks she handed out to Chakotay and B'Elanna were required to be active for far longer than would traditionally be necessary. Commander Chakotay and LT Torres served their ship very well during its tumultuous 7-year voyage. Although their efforts should be commended, Janeway giving former Maquis crew members senior positions aboard her ship still had a knock-on impact on other characters. For example, LT Tuvok Tim Russ should have been next in line to be Voyager's first officer, but Chakotay snagged the position instead. As a Vulcan, Tuvok isn't the type to hold a grudge, but it still represented a big choice for Janeway. Similarly, Torres beat an official Starfleet candidate to the position of chief engineer. Josh Clark's LT Joe Carey would have been given the role by Janeway if Chakotay hadn't stepped in and pretty much insisted that B'Elanna inherited the role. Carey remained a valuable member of Voyager's engineering team, but B'Elanna more than proved her worth with a myriad of ingenious solutions to the ship's various challenges and obstacles as it tried to reach Earth. Carey was very capable, but his by-the-book Starfleet approach probably wouldn't have been quite so advantageous as what Torres continually achieved. Star Trek Voyager has always embraced a rich tapestry of characters, explorers, rebels, scientists, and visionaries flung together by circumstance. At the heart of this intricate crew dynamic are Chakotay and B'Elanna Torres, two figures whose rank insignia stand out for reasons that go far beyond wardrobe choices. Their differing insignia aren't just aesthetic deviations. They're deliberate visual cues symbolizing deeper thematic undercurrents about loyalty, identity, and the uneasy integration of former Maquis into Starfleet's rigorously hierarchical structure. When Voyager first embarked on its mission and unexpectedly found itself stranded in the Delta Quadrant, it was no ordinary Starfleet crew that emerged to navigate the unknown. Captain Janeway's decision to integrate the Maquis cell that Chakotay commanded blurred conventional lines of allegiance. But Voyager's costuming department, under designer Robert Blackman, did something subtle yet brilliant. They made sure Chakotay and B'Elanna's insignia quietly reminded the viewer of those blurred lines. To start with, Chakotay, as former captain of a Maquis vessel, accepted Janeway's offer to serve as her first officer, a move of strategic wisdom and symbolic reconciliation. However, rather than donning the exact same insignia as other Starfleet officers, Chakotay's rank pips were slightly offset in tone and placement. Early on, observant fans noticed that Chakotay's insignia appeared marginally less polished, the black background of his comm badge darker, and the metallic finish slightly dulled compared to Janeway's gleaming insignia. It was as if his Starfleet colors were literally and figuratively slightly muted, a nod to his once divided loyalties. B'Elanna Torres, meanwhile, presented an even more compelling visual story. As chief engineer and a former Maquis rebel with a notoriously fractious relationship with authority, B'Elanna's provisional rank bar diverged notably from Starfleet standard. Instead of the usual gold pips denoting ensign or lieutenant rank, her collar bore a distinctive, elongated insignia bar. These provisional insignia, introduced specifically for former Maquis officers, signified a temporary field commission. It was an elegant narrative device signaling that although these individuals were now operating within Starfleet's chain of command, their status remained conditional, a work-in-progress trust-building experiment as much as a functional necessity. Behind the scenes, the idea stemmed directly from Voyager's creators, who wanted to visually reflect that these characters had not officially undergone full Starfleet reintegration. Unlike Starfleet Academy graduates, Maquis rebels hadn't been rigorously vetted, nor had they sworn to uphold the Federation's exacting codes of conduct. The provisional insignia cleverly balanced Starfleet pragmatism. They needed all the manpower they could muster with a visual reminder that not everyone on board played by Starfleet's rules. From a narrative standpoint, the subtle difference in insignia reinforced B'Elanna's inner conflict across the series. Her fierce independence, Klingon temper, and suspicion of authority all dovetailed into her provisional status, subtly suggesting she had more to prove, both to herself and her crewmates. That's why moments where B'Elanna earned the trust of senior staff or resolved engineering crises often carried extra weight. Each success edged her closer to fully belonging, even as her insignia quietly suggested unfinished business. In contrast, Chakotay's insignia felt deliberately understated as a reflection of his calm, philosophical approach to leadership. Where B'Elanna's provisional rank suggested tension and volatility, Chakotay's muted pips subtly underlined his reconciliatory nature. His quiet acceptance of Starfleet command, tempered with his deep spiritual roots and Maquis past, embodied Voyager's larger theme of unity through difference. Moreover, the distinction wasn't purely narrative, it had real-world production motivations as well. According to interviews with Robert Blackman, the design of the provisional rank insignia allowed the audience to instantly recognize who had been Maquis, even in large group shots or chaotic bridge scenes. On a ship where clear visual language was crucial for storytelling clarity, such minor details became invaluable. Over time, both Chakotay and B'Elanna's insignia also symbolized something else: evolution. Their gradual integration into Voyager's community mirrored the broader, hopeful message of Star Trek itself. Disparate people from vastly different backgrounds can come together, collaborate, and form lasting bonds. By Voyager's later seasons, the emphasis on the provisional status faded, both visually